It's great to have you back on the program, and everybody up here singing Kumbaya and locking arms. I said the only people not involved in that, it seems, are Matt Maroon and his mom Nora up here.
Certainly the bridge is a topic of conversation up here, and I understand why they're not happy. We'll continue to have that conversation in the House.
All right, so the Senate introduced the measure yesterday that would set up the P3, the public-private partnership, that makes it all go through, right, if it's approved.
If it's approved, yeah. The design would be that it would be an authority that would allow the bridge to be built, and then private enterprise or private investors would take the risk and build the bridge.
Have you taken a close look at the proposed legislation yet? We're told, and I haven't seen the language either. I shouldn't say either, but I haven't seen the language. But we were told by the governor in his press conference just outside on the porch yesterday afternoon that there are guarantees written into the bill that taxpayers will never be at risk of having to fund this new bridge.
That's what we're told as well. I have seen a draft. I have not looked to see if anything changed, although I don't believe anything changed from the draft that I saw, what was introduced yesterday. But the legislative process really needs to be sure that it's careful with this. Make sure that we go through this deliberatively, understand, and make sure that taxpayers are not on the hook. Because if we can't afford to build it today on our own, we can't afford to put taxpayers at risk of being stuck with it later.
Well, of course, the other question is how much have taxpayers already put into this project through, quote, studies, etc. We've spent over $50 million, haven't we?
Correct. I don't know the dollar figure, but certainly the studies have been going on for quite some time, many years through the prior administration.
So what has changed in Lansing in the mood of Republicans who stayed seated during the State of the State address when Governor Snyder first proposed going ahead with the NITC project, the new international trade crossing, and he got a standing ovation from Democrats that night. Republicans didn't stand and applaud him, and now we're seeing Republicans offering some support, at least in the Senate. What has changed?
Well, in the House, we still have concerns. We're not standing up yet. We did stay seated that day. I took some flack for staying seated that day, but I thought that was the proper stance. We'll wait and see. We're going to take our time with this. It's got the process to go through in the Senate, and then we'll go through our own process in the House to make sure that we understand what's on the line for Michigan taxpayers, make sure that we understand what's on the line for commerce in Michigan. I mean, this is an important issue, but it's something that we're not going to be in a rush with. We're going to take our time with.
One member, Dave Agema, speaking with yesterday, said, look, there are still a lot of roadblocks to overcome here. He said, number one, he said, we spent 4 years opposed to this project on the Republican side, and he openly asked, what has changed that suddenly has members of our own party saying it's a good idea now?
This is a different project. That's why I'm open. I was opposed before. I've not yet committed support. I'm open to it, but I want to make sure that we're very careful with this. We take our time. We are here in Mackinac, and we look out the window and see the Mackinac Bridge. The Mackinac Bridge was supposed to be toll-free when it was fully paid for. You still pay a toll to cross the Mackinac Bridge today. Because it's not been fully paid for.
And that was paid for with taxpayer money, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it was. The bonds were advanced out of taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. So those are the things we have to look out for. We have to be careful for.
But the governor used that as an example yesterday at his press conference. He held up the book called Bridging the Straits and pointed out that the same issues that we're hearing about today as concerns over the NITC project are the ones that were voiced with the Mackinac project as well.
And I would share that some of those same concerns still exist, and those are the concerns that are stopping the House from jumping up and down and signing on board yet. Again, but there are substantial differences. There has been change from the prior proposal to this proposal, so that's where we stand open instead of being opposed.
What has to be done in the legislation to get you to climb on board as a Republican caucus and to give the governor a chance to have this fully passed within 30 days?
Off the top of my head, I would say fair competition to make sure that anybody can compete for the work to actually build the bridge, to make sure that it's not designated so only one or a very select few could participate. So any Michigan worker could participate in building the bridge. Also to make sure that Michigan taxpayers are not being signed up for a future obligation. Again, I look and say if we don't have the money to build it on our own today, if somebody else is going to take that risk, then I'm willing to talk, I'm willing to listen, but not if our taxpayers are going to be on the hook for potential problems later on.
Now, what do you mean any worker could take part? Do you mean there's no requirement that there's union
I would certainly want to see fair competition to have it built. I would want to make sure that every Michigan worker could compete to participate in building the bridge. I don't want to see a structure or something put in place that narrows the scope so that any Michigan worker who's talented, who's got the skills and ability to participate in building the bridge would be shut out from that process.
I saw one story that was sort of hypothesizing this, that the unions in the state may lift their demand for prevailing wage to apply to such a big project like this in exchange for guarantees that you in the House on the Republican side won't pursue right to work legislation.
I've not been presented with that offer yet.
Is that an attractive offer to you?
Again, I look and I say we got to make Michigan competitive, and we can't let one project dictate how our entire state is going to be competitive. So that would be a concern I'd have with an offer like that. But when it comes to building the bridge, I would want to make sure that any construction worker that has the ability to can participate, and that they don't have to belong to one group or another in order to participate in building the bridge.
All right. What do you put the odds at that this is going to happen?
I certainly wouldn't bet against this legislature. I think we've demonstrated the ability to get through tough problems, to come together and deliver results. But at this point, I'm not ready to bet for or against the passage of this.
Jase Bolger, House Speaker, I got one final question for you. I asked Doug Rothwell earlier, what advice would you give the Maroon family at this point about their stance on the bridge? What would you tell them right now?
Being open to competition, and I understand that I understand their interest, but be open to discussing the options for this bridge, and to be a part of the process instead of being on the outside.
You would think they would have the most expertise, and they would be perhaps most qualified to be a big part of the project, unless there's something missing that we haven't seen yet behind door number one over there, and we just don't know.
And that's what we have to get through as a legislature. There's never been any legislation that I've seen that has such diverse opinions and diverse supposed facts on either side. We've got to cut through that, make sure we understand that, and I hope that they're a part of that.
All right, good to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Good to see you, Frank.
Jase Bolger, the House Speaker. Bill Schuette's here, the Attorney General. Very quickly, grab a headset there. I got